Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Bundesliga show. We are back for some more fantasy football action. So we're joined by Rune, as per usual. Rune, how are you doing this morning?
Very good. I'm a bit disappointed that there won't be any Bundesliga football on tonight, but yeah, that's just how it is with the wintry conditions at this stage.
Yeah, so wintry that me and Rune were discussing how my outdoor pipes are now frozen. So I've got a job on my hands for when I'm off this show. So yeah, lucky that we've got Bundesliga fantasy football to keep us distracted for a little while. Yeah, so before we get cracking, as per, if you can leave a thumbs up on the show, a like, that would be magic. There we go. It took a while. Comment along, of course, if you've got any questions and queries, and of course, subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss out on any of the fantasy football or more. So we shall press on, and so we'll start with defenders as per. Well, them going now at the bottom of your screen. So Rune, yeah, gladly I'll hand over to you to run us through your picks.
Thank you. My budget pick this week is Makengo again, just like last week, because right now I just think he's the best budget defender in the game, especially when we're talking such a low fee as 2.5 million. That's just really attractive. That he's a lock to start for Freiburg, and they have a pretty favorable home game against Hoffenheim. And Makengo's actually helped Freiburg keep clean sheets in the last 4 games in the Bundesliga he started. So they're on a bit of a roll there. And they got a 0-0 draw that last week, but I really feel they deserve to win that game. So I think it's looking good for them against Hoffenheim at home. Also, just wanted to mention Philipp Mbene from Mainz, because although the game has been postponed, he might be worth looking at actually, because he'll get the average points that he has this season. That's the points he will be getting this match day. So that's actually 7 points, and he costs 6 million. So, I mean, if you want to be guaranteed 7 points, then Mbene might be worth considering. The only player from Mainz Union that might be worth thinking about, but I think Makengo should be able to get 7 points as well, and maybe even more. So, and he's cheaper as well. Mid-price pick is Niels Nkunku from Eintracht Frankfurt, who was given the nod over Philip Marx at the left wing back position last week for Frankfurt, and grabbed a really, really nice assist from the left side, a really good cross, and ended up picking up 20 points. So that's pretty amazing, especially given that it was a pretty difficult game against Leipzig. And now Eintracht have some really good fixtures on the horizon. And first off is a trip to Darmstadt for the derby there. And I think Frankfurt should have a really good chance to keep up that good form, and that goes for Nkunku as well, especially considering Darmstadt's struggles with crosses and defending set pieces. I think they've shown some problems at that part of the game earlier this season.
Yeah, they sure have. Yeah.
Then finally, Ian Maatsen from Dortmund is my premium pick. A bit of a cheap premium pick this week, but just wanted to mention him. He's now been added to the game. He wasn't actually in the game last week, so that's why it says 0 points. But he actually had a pretty solid game for Dortmund against Darmstadt. He was thrown straight into their starting lineup and looked quite impressive right away, both defensively and offensively. And Dortmund have a really good schedule too. So a player that you could get in now and then keep for a few weeks at least.
Yep, absolutely good stuff. Couple of good mornings. Good morning to everyone that's watching. Good morning, Lawrence, Jay, obviously, aka FBL Gunnosaurus, and they've got a couple of questions in as well. I think these are defender related, so we'll go through them now. First of all, Lawrence, have Leverkusen easily beating Leipzig. Does dropping Henrichs, Brown, and or even Xavi make sense this week? So Yeah, what are we thinking about dropping RB Leipzig assets from Lawrence's theory that Leverkusen are going to do a job on RB?
Yeah, I expect Leverkusen to come out on top as well, and I think definitely makes sense with Henrichs and Raum. I think pretty sure Leverkusen are going to score and also going to dominate the game. So I think the points that Henrichs and Raum will get will be quite limited, especially when you compare them to some of the other options at the back this week, like for example Nkunku I just mentioned, or even Wagnermann from Stuttgart, for example, who's on sale, and they're all cheaper. So I think there are lots of alternatives at the back who are back to do better than Henrichs and Raum. And regarding Xavi Simons, I think he's in principle he's the kind of player who can do well against any opponent, kind of fixture proof, and usually does well. But with that said, I think there are a lot of good options in midfield. For example, you could take him out and get Vincenzo Grifo in. Grifo has a better matchup at home against Hoffenheim, and I think should be able to match at least match the points tally that Simons will get. So I think Simons is also worth considering dropping. He's not the worst keep, I think, but I think there are lots of good options in midfield as well. So definitely makes sense to consider.
Yeah, and on the same lines, FPL Gunnosaurus has obviously asked with Leverkusen having a tough game away on paper. Is this the time to place the star defender on someone other than Frimpong Grimaldo? For example, Fonzie Davis could do well this weekend. What are you thinking about starring defender-wise, Rune?
Yeah, depends on the alternatives. I still feel pretty confident about starring either Frimpong or Grimaldo, because as I just said, I back Leverkusen to win the game, and they're just both so involved. Grimaldo is on set pieces as well, so gets a lot of points just from taking corners and free kicks and all that. But yeah, sure, Davies has a better matchup and playing at home against Werder, and also returned to the form that we've seen from him in the past last week. But then again, he's been very inconsistent this season and has been very disappointing at times. So for me, at least, I'd rather stick with Grimaldo or Frimpong, just because I do think they'll do well. But I mean, if you are to pick a different star man at the back, then just for 1 week, then this week makes sense, because the Leverkusen obviously have a tough fixture on paper. So if you want to do something else than the majority and differentiate yourself, then I think Davies is quite a good alternative.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Be intrigued to see, like you mentioned earlier, where Wagnermann plays. If he starts, that is, I obviously expect him to start. Will he operate as high as he did last week, or will Lurling get the nod and play from the start? Tim has asked, what about Rafa Guerrero? So obviously chance for getting points against obviously Werder, who Bayern often like to do well against.
Yeah, I'm still not sure what to do with Guerrero at this point. I have him in my team too. I brought him in last week when I saw he was starting, and I'm just waiting for Tuchel's press conference at the moment, because I think depends on whether De Ligt is fit enough to start. De Ligt picked up an injury during Bayern's training camp in Portugal this week, and yeah, Tuchel was a bit uncertain earlier this week whether De Ligt would be fit enough to start. Probably depends on whether he's able to return to training today. And if De Ligt is not playing, then I think it looks quite good for Guerrero, actually, because then I could see Goretzka play at the back alongside Upamecano, as he's done earlier this season. I think might be a bit too early for Eric Dyer to start, especially given that he had to leave Bayern's training camp for the birth of his child, so hasn't trained that much with the Bayern squad yet. So if De Ligt is ruled out later today, then I think Guerrero has a quite good chance of starting in midfield. But depends on what Tuchel has to say. He may drop a hint on how he plans to start in midfield. So currently, I'm just waiting to see what will happen. But if I have to be pretty sure that he'll start to keep him because he's quite expensive.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Hafid just saying that he'll likely go with the Bayer duo with Davies alongside either Maatsen, alongside Maatsen and Makenko in defence. So yeah, some good thoughts there, Hafid. We'll see. Well, it's obviously up to everyone who they keep, but the Bayer Leverkusen duo are likely to hold their place in most teams unless people get itchy feet about the fixture. And Peter has tuned in as well. Good morning, Peter. Personally, don't want to see Goretzka play at the back ever again. That could be something interesting that we do have to see should Tuchel's hand be forced in De Ligt's circumstances. We'll move on. Some great questions in there already. So thank you everyone for those and comments. Our midfielders then, Rune, take us through those.
Yeah. Budget pick this week is Merlin Røhl, who played a bit deeper than usual last week because Nicolas Höfler was suspended and he filled in for him in central midfield, but he's usually playing as an attacking midfielder, and I assume he'll be back in that role this week against Hoffenheim at home. And as I said earlier, it's a game that I back Freiburg to win, and I think given Røhl's price tag, he's a quite good option in midfield if you're looking for a cheap player there. And my mid-price pick is Robin Hack, who was one of the standout performers last week. A really, really good differential if you had him in your side. Scored a brace, of course, against Stuttgart. And that should give him confidence. And Gladbach have another home game, and this week against Augsburg. Looking quite good for Gladbach, I think, this match day, but then they have Leverkusen and Bayern away afterwards. So if you want to get Hack, then he's probably a 1 week punt.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, my premium pick is Vincenzo Grifo, who I think is a good alternative to the more popular picks in the premium category in midfield. We all know what he's capable of. He's on all set pieces, including penalties for Freiburg. And his ownership is actually quite low. I know he hasn't quite been playing on the standard at the standards we saw from him last season, which was amazing. His best season in the Bundesliga ever. But still, on a good day, he's capable of scoring, bagging a brace, maybe even a hat trick if you're lucky. I think that we saw one hat trick from him last season, if I remember correctly. He's just a player that can always explode, and with his relatively low ownership, I think he's a quite attractive pick this week.
Yeah, so just picking up on that. So FPL Gunnosaurus saying, I see that Grifo is being heavily hyped for this match day. And basically, why is that? Is it because of Hoffenheim's poor form? Because, as we've alluded to already, Grifo hasn't really hit the heights of last season particularly, and he is indeed expensive for 17 mil. His ownership is low, as you've already said, Rune. So, I mean, it feels like we haven't spoken much about Grifo, either in this show, a little bit more, but certainly not as much in the review shows that we do on a Monday. Maybe because Freiburg have been more quiet so far this season, haven't been scoring many goals, and therefore Grifo's involvement has been a lot less. But he's still backing him to have a big involvement this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, that's also what I said, that he hasn't been playing at the standards we saw from him last season, not at all actually. But with that being said, I don't think, at least fantasy-wise, he hasn't been that poor actually. I mean, 128 points, and I think it's 9 points on average. Still pretty solid. And if you look at his last home games, then he got 10 points against Darmstadt, and then 9 points against Köln, and then also 9 points against Union Berlin last week, and could easily have done better than in that game, because I feel like Freiburg really deserved to win, and could have gotten an assist or maybe even a goal in that game. So I get what you're saying, Gonosaurus, but I think that's why it may be a good time to invest now, because its ownership is low, and also for a reason. And some of the other options, like for example, Xavi Simons has a tough matchup this week. The same goes for the Leverkusen players, Wirtz and Hoffmann, for example. A difficult fixture for them as well. So I think makes sense to consider at least.
Yeah, no, 100%. One comment or question in from Hafid was about what to do about Lovro Meyer and Bester. Obviously, both players interesting prospects for this weekend. Obviously, be involved against one another. Believe, Heidenheim, Wolfsburg, isn't it? So, what do you reckon about Bester and Meyer?
I think Meyer is quite good differential. I also mentioned him in my weekly fantasy pick article on Bulinews this week. He's on all set pieces for Wolfsburg, and usually quite involved for them. Thing is, Wolfsburg have been quite inconsistent, and they're not really playing that well, I feel. Also last week against Mainz, they started well, but then they chose to sit back and let Mainz dominate the game. So I feel they're struggling to create chances. So definitely a gamble. I would probably rather go with Beste if I were to choose between those two involved in the same fixture, because Beste has just been so consistent at home for Heidenheim. Incredible numbers this season. His goal involvement is pretty crazy, and Heidenheim are really good set piece wise, and that's because his free kicks and corners are so good, and definitely expect them to score against Wolfsburg this week, and then Beste is always likely to be involved when they get on the score sheet.
Yeah, just before we move on to strikers, then one last one from FPL Gonosaurus, which is about how does he get Doppelhack, the star man, into his midfield this weekend, because he owns Brandt, Musiala, Stoiger, Simmons, and Wirtz. I would swap for Stoiger, but he's on sale. Pretty tricky how to squeeze Hack in this weekend if you're. I mean, funds-wise, you might have to let someone else go in another position, perhaps to free up some funds, perhaps. Otherwise, it's a pretty tricky one to drop any of the aforementioned players, unless you go, obviously, with the theory that Leipzig are really going to struggle and maybe drop Simmons, is my only thought. Rune, what do you reckon?
Yeah, that would be one option. I wouldn't sell Brandt or Musiala, that's for sure. Obvious, that's sake. But another option would be to maybe get Wagnerman in at the back, and then because he's on sale, that would make your loss a bit smaller. You get him for a cheaper price, and then it would probably make it more acceptable to sell Stoiger. But definitely, I have the same problem. It's so annoying that Stoiger is on sale this week, because obviously that makes you more inclined to keep him. Wagnerman could be a way to justify selling him.
Yeah, no, true. Being interesting. Well, I feel that Stoiger will probably have a good game because he's, playing against my boys. So we'll see. Right, we'll move on to strikers then to finish off things or round things up. Rune, do you want to talk us through your 3 striker picks?
Yeah. First one, budget pick, is Jamie Lewling. I was quite surprised that he didn't start last week. Had performed pretty well in Stuttgart's friendly leading up to the second half of the season. yeah, he ended up coming on eventually and provided an assist in the second half. And I think given that, then what he showed in the second half and how Stuttgart improved as the game progressed, I think he should start against Bochum. And he's one of the only real budget options I would consider up front. I think it's not like there are tons of good budget strikers, but I think Leveling offers some good value considering his price. And my mid-price pick is Sasa Kalajdzic. He had a pretty quiet debut for Frankfurt against Leipzig, but obviously this week's game against Darmstadt will be very different. It's a game that we will expect Frankfurt to dominate, and Kalajdzic should get plenty of chances. And as I said earlier, Darmstadt have really struggled to defend set pieces, and could really have some problems trying to stop Kalajdzic, I feel. And his ownership is 0%, so a real differential there, a lot of potential. And then my premium pick is Jonas Wind, who he's not been up to the standards we saw from him in the beginning of the season, but I still feel he's Wolfsburg's biggest threat up front. He only needs one chance to score, maybe even half a chance. He's incredibly clinical when the chance pops up. And I do expect Wolfsburg to score against Heidenheim. I know Heidenheim are in pretty good form, but it's not like they're known for their defensive solidity. They're usually just scoring more goals than the opponent and still conceding. So I could see Wind getting on the score sheet there, and then they have a game against FC Köln afterwards. So two pretty good games coming up for Wolfsburg. So I feel the Wind could add to his goal tally this week and the next.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you very much, Rune. I think there's just one comment in as well from Gonosaurus. So with Bayern playing 3 times in 7 days, do you expect Tuchel to start tinkering? Who do you expect Koeman to come in? Do we expect Koeman to come in for Muller, for example? Is this maybe start time that we're a little bit more careful with buying assets in the next week or so?
Yeah, I think this week would make a lot of sense for Koeman to come in, and obviously he's on sale, but getting 3 Bayern players up front might be too much of a gamble. I've burned my fingers doing something similar earlier this season. But yeah, sure, Koeman should come in for Müller this week, and then we'll see in midweek. De Ligt probably won't play both games. I think that would be quite surprising given his injury problems. So the question is, will he risk De Ligt this weekend, or will he give him a break and maybe let Guerreiro play, remain in the starting lineup? Quite difficult to predict, I think. But let's wait for the press conference later and see what Tuchel has to say.
Yeah, it sounds wise. Yeah, absolutely. We'll see what comes out of that. Obviously, we've all got a little bit extra time as well, which is great. So you can all mull over your choices a little bit longer. Lawrence has asked, is it too early to ride the Sancho train with Dortmund playing Köln? Do we expect Sancho to start, Rune, after his little cameo? Or is he still going to keep on building up his minutes?
I think it's a bit too early. I watched the press conference with Edin Terzic yesterday, and he praised Sancho and his fitness levels, but also said Dortmund are being quite careful with him and don't want to risk him too much, want to build him up slowly. So I think that was an indication that he probably will start on the bench and then come on during the second half, pretty much like this last week. But you're right. We can actually see the lineup. So if he starts, then he might be worth considering. I just think it's a real shame that he's not a midfielder, but a striker. That decreases his value, and he's also quite expensive. But if he starts against Köln, then he's worth considering. But still feel if he starts, then he's likely to come off after maybe 60, 65 minutes.
Sure.
So his minutes will be managed in the start. I think.
In fairness, he got a lot of minutes in the second half, didn't he? He got brought on very early. So we'll see if he is even brought on that early this time, depending on the state of the game. That's pretty much it. Just a note, FPL Gunnosaurus, enjoy your first Bundesliga game next week. Leverkusen Gladbach. I'm sure you'll have a belter of a time. Very, very jealous. So have a cracking time there. Thank you as always to everyone that's tuned in. Some brilliant questions as always, and us working our way through on a Friday morning is what we love to do. Of course, before we finish up, if I can find it, leave a thumbs up on the show, comment along. Now you've got a little bit longer, as already mentioned. Myself and Rune, mainly Rune, because he knows what he's talking about, will try and reply to any comments up until obviously that Saturday afternoon match. So, spread the word that you've got a bit longer to watch and enjoy, and of course subscribe if you can do. That'd be fantastic. So thank you, Rune. Thank you, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.